Welcome back. As you know, I'm Eli the Computer Guy here for the Daily Blob, where we continue to ask the question, what does AI actually do? What problems does AI actually solve? We're told time and time again that AI is the future. But then that's about as far as anybody goes. I think this is interesting right now. Like the whole fundamental question, what is artificial intelligence and what are you trying to do with it? Because there's this whole thing where jobs are going to be lost to artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence specifically. They don't talk about automation, right? Automating workflows or anything like that. They talk about specifically artificial intelligence, the LLMs, multimodal models, all of that kind of stuff. And I'm left scratching my head because it's not that these AI systems are not valuable to a degree, but I don't think they're actually that revolutionary. What I would argue is basically pulling more automation into corporate workflows is far more disrupting, especially to jobs in that, than artificial intelligence, LLMs. I think about this recently. So my wife and I went up to the Adirondacks, up in upstate New York, and when we drove back, it was a 2-day hop, and so we needed to stay at a hotel. And it was interesting, right? So we're driving, and we weren't sure how far we were going to get that first day, so I didn't want to book a hotel before we left. So we're just driving. It turns to be my wife's time to drive the car, so she's driving. It's getting to be about 5 or 6 o'clock, and so I simply ask her, like, how much farther do you want to drive tonight? So she says, like, I would like to drive about another hour. And so it was really cool, right? I was able to use my iPhone, pull up my iPhone, look at what our route is, and then find a town that is about an hour from what our current location is. When I did, I looked to see if there was a certain brand of hotel that we like, and there was one. So then I opened up the app for that particular hotel chain. I found the hotel that I was looking for, and it was really cool. So basically, I found the hotel I was looking for. I then booked the room on my phone. Right? That is a form of automation. It allows me to do that without having to talk with anybody or anything like that. The really cool part with it, though, is that after I booked my room, it then asked me what room I wanted in their hotel. And so it literally brought up like the blueprint of the hotel, and I got to pick exactly what room I wanted. So think about this, like you normally go into a hotel and you go through the whole, book, the reservation process or whatever else. They ask you, oh, look, we have this room. Is that what you want? Right? And there's a whole bunch of back and forth there. I was simply able to pull up the pictures, go, ooh, I want that particular room. I picked that particular room, and then it's like, do you want the key on your phone? So sure, I'll take the key on my phone. And so I did the key on the phone, took a couple of minutes. Basically, we were then able to drive to the hotel. We pulled the stuff out of the car. We went up to our room. My phone unlocked the door, and there you go. Right? No need to deal with a human being, and absolutely zero artificial intelligence involved. And when I think about modern systems and ways that modern systems can really disrupt the economy and such, I think good old-fashioned databases. I honestly believe good old-fashioned relational databases, with essentially web app front ends that are designed appropriately for specific companies' workflows, are going to be much more significant than artificial intelligence. But for some reason, everybody is hyper-focused on artificial intelligence, right? Relational databases, that is yesterday. AI is now the future. But wouldn't it be funny? If AI didn't actually work out so well? What if MIT did a report on new AI pilot projects and found out that a huge number of them actually completely and utterly failed? What do you think that percentage would be? If the answer is 95% of generative AI projects failing, you would be correct. Because maybe, and I'll just put this on the table, generative AI does not actually solve nearly as many problems as people think it does. MIT report, 95% of generative AI pilots at companies are failing. I think about this with a blockchain. Remember blockchain? Remember how we were told blockchain is a database system of the future? And remember when I used to lose my goddamn mind, right? Anybody that's followed me, so I've been doing this for 16 years. I've done a version of the Daily Blob since 2012. Remember when I used to scream about blockchain? And people were like, Eli, blockchain is the future. It's like, look, it's a database type. It's a database system, right? It's a an insanely distributed database system with immutable records. Once data gets put in, it's always going to be there, right? The database size is always going to increase in size, and it's just massively scalable. And as I argued back in the day, right, is there a use case for blockchain? Yes. Probably about 4 of them. Probably about 4. In the entire world, I do believe there's probably about 4 legitimate uses for blockchain. But it was weird, right? It was weird, right? NoSQL, as I've talked about before, NoSQL, the NoSQL database type literally revolutionized the world. The world we live in today would not exist were it not for NoSQL, right? Insanely scalable, insanely fast database system that every once in a while loses your records. Right. Anyways, if you're trying to create Twitter, if you're trying to create Facebook, if you're trying to create a social media site, NoSQL is a great way to go. NoSQL actually changed the world, right? But blockchain, for some reason, that's what got all the PR and press. And I talk about that kind of thing because that's where I want you to be thinking about in the modern world. And you think about your organization and you think about the company you work for and all that kind of thing. Automating the modern world versus AI implementations, right? Like with, again, with all these kiosks and things. Like I love Sheets. There's a company called Sheets. I love Sheets. They were the first company that I saw that brought in kiosks to their little sub-making place. Must have been like 20 years ago. It was pretty new when they actually brought it in. And so you go into the Sheets. So it's a gas station, right? So you go in, you plug in what your order is, it prints out a little receipt, you go pay for the receipt, you grab your sub, away you go. I know now it's 2025, so that seems completely normal, but I do believe they started rolling that out in about 2005. It was absolutely fabulous. It was absolutely fucking fabulous. Why? You know, you're doing a 20-hour drive or you're doing whatever else, you're tired, you're cranky, you kind of probably stink a little bit, you kind of sort of need to piss or poo. You don't want to have to stand in a line. You don't want to have to talk with somebody and pretend to be nice for half a second just so you can get a fucking foot-long sub. You can just go in, you can plug in what you want, and then you can go and do what you need to do. And the cool thing about the kiosks, right, instead of having one person handling people, they would have 4 or 5 of these kiosks. So the kiosks were always open, and then you just wait for the thing to ding, right? That is automation. They brought that into, about 10 years ago. They brought that into Southwest, right? So we used to live in Baltimore, so BWI was a major Southwest hub. Fucking fabulous, right? You need to check in. Instead of going to like one person to check in, like maybe having 2 or 3 counter agents, you would walk into BWI, they had 50 of these fucking kiosks, right? You go up to the kiosk, you scan your ID, you say you want to check a bag, it literally prints out the sticker for you, you put the sticker on your bag, you walk it up to drop it off, and away you go. That was a much better way of accomplishing the task that you need to do than the old system. And as I've said, absolutely no artificial intelligence involved. And so the concern that I have right now is there are so many things that can be improved if we deploy more systems that are automated to solve specific problems. But so much of the focus, for whatever reason, is on AI. And I just think I think it's wrong-headed. I think with this MIT report, I do think it's curious to see that so many of the AI projects are failing. And the important thing to be thinking about too, since so many people are worried about jobs, yeah, I get it, fucking jobs. The thing to be considering is that we are probably going through an AI bubble. And so one of the things we're told now, right, all the way from your mama and papa, all the way to the Trump administration, is that you need to learn AI skills. You don't need to learn automation skills. You don't need to learn robotics. You don't need to learn engineering. You don't need to learn math. You need to learn AI skills. Anyways, my caution for you is if you go out there to hyper focus on AI skills, I question if by the time you get out of your program, those quote unquote AI skills actually have much value, or if the world has moved the hell on. You need to think about this, right? It's all a bet. It is all a bet. When I got my MCSE back in 2000, I could have gotten my Novell networking, whatever, Novell administrator certification or the MCSE. Why did I get my MCSE? That one. It was Microsoft. I knew Microsoft. I didn't know Novell. That was literally it. Within a couple of years, Novell was dead. Microsoft took off, right? That is a bet. One of the important things to be thinking about is all of this is a bet. The more information that you have, the more you think about the bet that you're placing, the better you will do at the end of the day. The Gen AI Divide, State of AI in Business 2025, a new report published by MIT's NANDA initiative reveals that while generative AI holds promise for enterprises, most initiatives to drive rapid revenue growth are falling flat. Despite the rush to integrate powerful new models, about 5% of AI pilot programs achieve rapid revenue acceleration. The vast majority stall, delivering little to no measurable impact on profit and loss. The research, based on 150 interviews with leaders, a survey of 350 employees, and an analysis of 300 public AI deployments, paints a clear divide between success stories and stalled projects. Quote, some large companies, pilots, and younger startups are really excelling with generative AI, Chappelle said. Startups led by 19 or 20-year-olds, for example, quote, have seen revenues jump from $0 to $20 million in a year, he said. It's because they pick one pain point, execute well, and partner smartly with companies who use their tools. So basically, they focus on what artificial intelligence can actually do. They figure out how the AI can solve a particular pain point, and then they sell that solution. Wow! It's almost like these 19 and 20-year-olds are technology professionals who happen to know a little bit about AI. Quote, some large, but for 90% of companies in the data set, generative AI implementation is falling short. The core issue, not the quality of the AI models, but the learning gap for both tools and organizations. While executives often blame regulation or model performance, MIT's research points to flawed enterprise integration. Generic tools like ChatGPT excel for individuals because of their flexibility, but they stall in enterprise use since they don't learn from or adapt to workflows, Chappelle explained. The data also reveals a misalignment in resource allocation. More than half of generative AI budgets are devoted to sales and marketing tools, yet MIT found the biggest ROI in back office automation, eliminating business process outsourcing, cutting external agency costs, and streamlining operations. This is going to be a big thing too when you start looking at trying to deploy AI into your systems, into your environment. The whole question of where do you actually get the biggest bang for your buck? Yeah, it's cool for the marketing department, right? The marketing department can automatically create emails so that they can cold email potential clients, basically spam people. Does that actually bring you a good ROI? Whereas if you can integrate AI into your backend systems, basically using LLMs as an improved version of regex, right? It may not be sexy, but it might be a hell of a lot more valuable. I think that's one of the big things, like with this AI stuff. What problem are you trying to solve for? What is the value of the problem that you're trying to solve for? Are you resourcing appropriately, right? Are you doing good old-fashioned technology professional work? Finding a problem, assessing what the root of the problem is, understanding who the vested interest in that problem is, understanding what the value of solving that problem is, and truly understanding what the total cost of ownership in order to build, deploy, and maintain the solution. Right? That almost just sounds like what AI professionals do. They just happen to be using the same concept on a different stack, right? So instead of looking at a relational database or a SharePoint or Active Directory or Exchange Server or Salesforce, they're just using that thought process on an AI stack. It's almost like, wait for it, AI is just another shitty ass technology to come down the pike, and real technology professionals are just going to deal with it like they've dealt with all the other technologies that have come down the pike. Anyways, how companies adopt AI is crucial. Purchasing AI tools from specialized vendors and building partnerships succeed about 67% of the time, while internal builds succeed only 1/3 as often. So this is going to be a big thing. Like, a lot of people want to own their AI products. The idea nowadays is, right, we are going to create this and we are going to own it. But it comes back to that whole, the fundamental problem of 42, right? Douglas Adams, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Earth was supposed to... No, Earth wasn't. There was another planet. There was another planet before Earth. Anyways, it was the largest supercomputer to ever be built, right? It was supposed to come up with the answer for life, the universe, and everything. And so after billions of years, it was churning along, finally spits out an answer, and the answer is 42. The answer is 42. The answer to life, the universe, and everything is 42. And people are like, what the hell does this mean? And then basically what gets brought up is maybe the problem is we don't really know what the question is supposed to be. And so that's why Earth is created as a new supercomputer in order to figure out the true question for life, the universe, and everything, to understand what 42 means. And I think that's one of the big things we get to with a lot of technology deployments right now, and why I keep bringing up this whole idea of like AI versus automation, right? Is there actually a value in the LLM versus just creating some kind of database if-else statement type thing? And I think the big issue that comes out is most people don't really understand what question that they're trying to solve for. It's like, oh, we're going to use AI for this. Like, what does that mean? What is that? Is AI going to be doing language processing? Is AI going to be doing image processing? Is AI going to be turning the results of a SQL statement into something a little more human readable, that type of thing? Like, what is AI doing? AI! Oh, fuck. Other key factors for success include empowering line managers, not just central AI labs, to drive adoption and selecting tools that can integrate deeply and adapt over time. So that's going to be one of the big things, too, is with deploying artificial intelligence, is making sure this isn't some weird cloistered thing. That's one of the things you get to with a lot of technology deployments and enterprises, is all the people that were part of creating whatever the solution is, they fully understand what's going on. And nobody really cares about, training the secretaries. I've seen this. I worked at one company where, yeah, they spent a lot of money. They spent a lot of money deploying a VoIP system, like corporate level voice over IP, and they spent almost no time training the receptionists and the secretaries. Right? I think that's going to be one of the big things going forward, and something to be thinking about. Right? If you are a professional. Right, so I know I get a lot of tears. I get a lot of people out there, all they want to do is swap RAM chips or do some JavaScript code. Right, you can ignore me. Right, but if you really want to be a professional, if you really want to be a technology professional, one of the things to think about is what is the most appropriate way to solve this particular problem. Right, do you use technology to solve this problem? Do you use an LLM to solve this problem, or do you use a bagged lunch and learn session? Right? So think about this. If you're trying to do all these AI projects and all that kind of stuff, one of the questions to ask is how much outreach do you actually do within your organization? How many times a week, a month, a year do you get the company to pay for a pretty nice spread of sandwiches or whatever, and basically have whatever employees want to come into the largest meeting room or training room that you have, and you simply do a presentation on what your department is doing in regards to creating AI solutions, what these AI solutions are going to be doing for the employees, and so on and so forth. How much mentoring does your IT, your technology department do with the line employees to verify that the line employees actually know what the hell is going on? Right? Because a lot of times, especially with users, they fuck up weird things. Like you're always worried about the big issues, right? Like database replication. We gotta make sure we got database replication, or latency for high availability failover, right? As a technology project, you think about these big problems. Like the real fucking problems in the world are so fucking stupid. Like I think about this with one client I had, when I started my little I didn't start a consulting company. Anyways, when I started putting out pull tab signs and I said, hey, I'll repair computers. Like I remember the first printer repair that I did. Right? So I didn't fix for printers. I was not Louis Rossmann back in the 2000s. I did not do hardware stuff. Anyway, so I got this call. I got this call from this person. They said, look, my printer is broken. Can you fix printers? Right? And here's the thing. I didn't fix printers. I didn't know a good goddamn thing about printers. I didn't, right? Active Directory, Exchange Server, all that shit I knew. Printers? Fuck if I know. Again, print server. I knew how to deal with print servers. Didn't know how to deal with a printer itself. But again, when you start a business, you only have two resources, time and money. So, I talked to the customer. I was like, look, I don't know if I can solve your problem. I'm not a printer repair person, but I don't have anything better to do. So here's the deal. If I fix your problem, you pay me my hourly rate. If I don't fix your problem, I walk the fuck away. No fee at all. And he's like, well, fair enough. Right? That's the best deal you're ever going to get, right? So anyways, I go there, I bring my little toolkit, I still got this. I need to put this in the background. Anyways, I bring my little toolkit with my little screwdriver. Like back in the day, this is how I started my consulting business. I stole this from my stepfather. He was in the Navy, and he's my stepfather, so you steal shit from your stepfather. Look, it's real. Anyways, I had stolen this from my stepfather, and in it, I had this crappy little screwdriver and a little book of CDs, writable CDs with things like operating systems on it. So I go in. Hey, hello, I'm the computer repair guy. Let me look at your printer. And I go there. I feel like a jackass. I feel like a piece of shit. But it's like, oh, who knows? Maybe I'll learn something today. So I go there and I'm looking at this printer. I'm like, okay, tell me the story. And he tells me. He's like, yeah, I was doing this and I was doing that, and it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work anymore. I'm like, all right, so I try to put the geek game face on. Right, that whole thing, like you look like you're fixing the problem with your mind, like you were being Professor Xavier, and it seems really cool in your brain, but you probably look like a fucking idiot when you're doing it. And then I'm looking at it, and then I notice on the little LCD screen, there's this message. There's this message that keeps scrolling by. Now look at the message. It says, press enter to continue. That's right. And that was the day I became an expert in printer repair. That's a true story. I got my hourly rate. I walked away. Customer was happy. Before I walked in the door, he had an unusable printer. I walked out the door, he had a usable printer. Sometimes you just have to press fucking enter. And I bring up that story. There's a real reason I bring up that, because that's the reality of users. Even when you have a message fucking scrolling across the screen telling you what to do next, sometimes they just don't fucking see it. I don't know what it is. They just don't see it sometimes. So I think that's one of the things, like thinking about like with your IT department and how you're interacting with the users, how you're interacting with all of the interested parties to make sure they're on board. Doing bagged lunch and learn sessions, or lunch and learn sessions where you bring in some catered food. So anybody who's interested, right? You're not going to get punished if you don't show up, because you don't want people that don't want to be there. That sucks, right? Anybody who wants to come, we're going to be talking about the AI solutions in the company. Out of the people there that are most interested, be like, hey, let's set up something like, half an hour every week. Let's talk with you about how you do your work, how these solutions are actually solving your problems, or if they are, right? And go through that kind of thing to actually bring everybody to be part of the project. Right? It is fascinating. It is fascinating how pissed off secretaries that don't feel respected can totally screw a multi-million-dollar deployment when they just don't give a fuck. You ever deal with as I've said many times, right? When I was doing the consulting thing, people misunderstand how the real corporate world works. How the real corporate world works? Oh, the CEOs sign the checks. CEOs sign the checks. Their secretaries or executive assistants are the ones to write the checks, right? The assistants are the ones to make the call to you. The assistants are the ones that you're probably going to be dealing with. The assistants are the ones that are actually going to write the check. The assistants are then going to take the check they wrote, hand it to the CEO, and tell them to fucking sign it. There is nothing more adorable than seeing a 60-year-old CEO get the ever-loving browbeat, getting browbeat by their assistant because they're not doing what the assistant wants. It's amusing. Power dynamics in real corporations. It's a wacky world. So anyways, and why I bring that up is so many times they get overlooked. You focus on the executive. You focus on the directors. You focus on, and then you fucking forget the line employees that actually have to deal with the crap that you're deploying. And then you wonder why your deployment fails. So anyways, I think it's going to be a big thing, like with artificial intelligence. And then just basically asking the questions, right? Does this AI solution actually solve your problem? Do you need an AI solution, or do you need something that is actually much more simple? Let's see here. The report also highlights the widespread use of, quote, shadow AI. I've been talking about shadow AI for a while. Unsanctioned tools like ChatGPT and the ongoing challenge of measuring AI's impact on productivity and profit. That's an interesting thing to think about with shadow IT too, or shadow AI too, is if your tech department does not have communications with the standard employees, one of the questions is your company might actually see a lot more value out of AI that's simply not being registered anywhere, right? You may be trying to do your crappy ass AI deployments and they're failing, no return on investment. And you think, okay, AI sucks. AI is obviously a failure. What you might not see is that managers and other employees have gone out, swiped their own credit cards in order to be able to use AI services, and they're actually getting a massive amount of a return on investment. It's not being logged anywhere. You're not seeing that. So anyways, I think this is going to be a curious thing with AI going forward. My overall recommendation, I know this I'm going to say something controversial. Trigger warning. I'm going to say something controversial here, but this is why you should be, nice to your boss. This is why you should be nice to your peers. This is why you should be nice to your fellow employees and have conversations, right? As I've said before, there's a video I did years ago. You can be 100% right and 100% fired at the exact same time, right? You can do exactly what you were tasked to do and still get kicked the fuck out the door because what you were tasked to do was an abysmal failure, right? Part of your job as a technology professional, what I used to tell my employees, is a technology professional, your job is to answer the questions your clients do not know to ask. Right? When you sit there and the CEO asks you questions and you answer all of those questions, but you know that there's something that they should have asked that they didn't, if you walk the fuck out the door, you're a fucking failure. You are a disgrace to our industry. Right? The point is, you need to go out there. You need to go out there and figure out what are the users not asking? What should the users be asking about that they do not know enough about these systems to fully understand? What are the pain points for the users? Where are the places that users are getting unexpected value, and where are the places where it's actually a detriment to use the systems that you're creating? What needs to be improved? Again, as an actual technology professional, right? Not as a fucking node developer. Fuck the node developer. I'm sorry, node developers. It's your fault. It's your fault. You never hear me say anything about C# developers. C# developers are lovely human beings. It's the node developers, right? It's not simply about the code. Your job is to solve the problem. Sometimes solving the problem is racking servers. Sometimes solving the problem is writing a shit ton of code. Sometimes solving the problem is documenting what the fuck people have been building for the past decade. And sometimes solving the problem is sitting down with other employees in your company or organization over a cup of coffee and fully understanding what their situation is within the company, how they use the systems, what the pain points are, and what they actually need. Because I can tell you, I can put fucking money on the table. I can put $1,000 fucking dollars on the table that in most of the companies that you work for, the actual pain point, the actual problem your users are having has not a goddamn thing to do with artificial intelligence. Redesigning the front end so that your form, the form flow or whatever actually works in a coherent fashion, right? Being able to autofill using JavaScript or whatever, doing other things. I bet you dollars to donuts. The actual problems your company has in regards to technology that could actually bring you value is not going to be solved by LLMs. But anyways, I don't know. Some things to ponder. Some things to think about. Real technology professionals solve the problems. No developers write code. What do you want to be? What do you want to be when you grow up? I feel bad for the no developers, but they brought it on themselves. I just want you to understand. People are like, why is he so mean to no developers? Have you fucking met a no developer? Again, PHP folks, whatever. Perls are adorable. Oh, you do Perl. C#, C++. Dude, I ain't gotta say shit about no C++ developer. It's the Node folks. They're just the latest generation of the Ruby on Rails. Like, think about that. I was in Baltimore, dealt with the Ruby on Rails folks. So, 2012 was when the meetup boom kind of happened. So between 2012 to 2014 or whatever, there were so many startup companies out there, and so people learned Ruby on Rails, Ruby on Rails, because the idea with Ruby on Rails is very, very easy to learn how to develop. Bit more resource intensive, hardware resource intensive, but it was easy to write code for. And what was hilarious in that time period is around all these startup companies, they had these fucking fuck the Ruby developers. Just fuck the Ruby developers. Motherfucker, these jackasses have been doing 3 months of coding. 3 months ago, they didn't even know what a goddamn function was. But now they're Ruby developers. Motherfucker, these fuckers would strut around. I literally had an employee of mine. He had a master's degree. He had worked at a very prominent institution until he told an actual admiral exactly what he thought. That did not go well. Anyways, master's degree, prominent institution, dealt with very real-time systems, exceptionally real-time systems, where failure is bad. Anyways, as with all things, wound up in my sphere, wound up being one of my employees for a while. God knows why. I'm like the geek whisperer. This random fucking, why are you here? Why are you swapping RAM chips in my computer repair company? You have a master's degree. I like swapping RAM chips. There's something about you, Eli. Okay. Anyways, the funny thing was, I told this guy to go to meetups. You need to start going to these technology meetups in the whole 9 yards. And it was hilarious. He would come back. He's like, Eli. I'm like, what? They're so smart. I just don't feel like it's my place because they're so smart. And I'd be like, I'm sorry, what meetup did you go to again? And I'd pull up the meetup. Be like some Ruby on Rails piece of shit. I'm like, no, dude, it's just fucking confidence. It's just dude, all they know is Ruby on Rails. They're not even really professionals. They're what I call computer flippers. They have one skill set. And that is it. But they're so stupid, they're confident. They know so little that they're incredibly confident about what they think they do know. Ergo, you walk in with a master's degree. You literally lost your job because you got into an argument with an admiral. This is his level. When you lose your job because you get into an argument with an admiral. And he's like, oh, I don't know about, he's Ruby on... Anyways. So I feel like back in that time frame, it was the Ruby on Rails developers. And I feel like the Ruby on Rails developers kind of just morphed into the Node developers. And so, yeah, I don't know. They deserve it. They deserve it. You choose. You choose to code in Node. You choose and code in Node. You were not born to the JavaScript stack. You can change your stack at any time. You choose. You choose to be a gigantic douche. It's not my fault. Anyways. Oh, there's so many Node. I get that from people sometimes. Like I'll run into people in the real world. And they're like, yeah, the only thing I don't really understand about your videos, Eli, is what do you have against Node developers? I'm like, have you met a Node developer? He's like, well, I am a Node developer. I'm like, well, oh, this is gonna be awkward. Anyways, so what do you think about this? What do you think about MIT reporting 95% of generative AI pilots are failing? What do you think about the brilliant idea of actually interacting with the other employees in your company to figure out what the hell they need? Also, something to think with this, just kind of riffing here. What do you think about this, again, in regards to work from home or return to office? Again, collisions, right? I'm not anti-collisions. I don't know why you need to collide all the time. But there is that interesting question, right? If you're in the DevOps department, if you're trying to deploy AI solutions, but you never have a cup of coffee with anybody else in your company, do you really know what problems that they're having? I don't know. Some things to ponder, some things to think about. Put your comments down below. Give us a thumbs up. Give us a thumbs down. Call me amazing. Or call me just a nasty, nasty, nasty Node hater. Please call me a nasty Node hater. This brings a little smile to my face. What is wrong with Node developers? They're just such assholes. I'm serious. Seriously, with the Node thing, why that came from a few years ago. And I swear to God, time and time again, I would go to like tech things or whatever, and it'll be going great. Like, so with Silicon Dojo, right? With Silicon Dojo was still a brand new idea. I was hopeful. Anyways, I would go and I'd talk with all kinds of people, right? I would talk with database administrators. I would talk to C# developers. I'd talk with PHP developers. And it would always be this nice, lovely conversation. Maybe they really liked what I was doing. Maybe they were questionable about it. But it was just always this lovely conversation. Motherfucker. And then the Node developers would show up, the fucking Node, and then I would just get my ass handed to me. I'm looking at this 2-bit piece of shit that probably wasn't born when I got my MCSE, trying to hand me my ass. And I'm like, what is wrong with the Node developers? That's my thing. Literally. You sit there and some jackass is trying to hand you your ass and you're just like, I'm sorry. What's your stack again? Oh, Node. Okay. Now I understand what's going on. I was confused before. Now I know you're a Node developer. So you're just an asshole. Fair enough. Anyways. See y'all later.